While currently about 30 are active in the Noontime Legends, over the decades, scores of others have passed through this experience. For some, injuries or fear of injury ended their play. Others had new jobs take them away from UNM or out of state. For some, it was kids and heavier work commitments. And a few may have found the vibe just not for them. But here's just a partial list of Legends alumni. So when you show up 2 or 3 days a week and you know you're going to see these same guys, it's pretty stunning when all of a sudden you realize you're not going to see one of them again.
Hector Torres had been an English professor at UNM for more than 20 years. Stefania Gray was a grad student in literature and cultural studies. Today, students and faculty dealt with the shock of those murders after police in UNM officially named the victims.
Hector had been dating Stefania for some time. Stefania's ex-boyfriend had already shown up at Hector's home once, threatening violence with a knife. That time, Hector talked him down, and a restraining order was issued. But the ex returned weeks later anyway, with a gun, and shot both Hector and Stefania dead. The man later pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 25 years in prison.
And I saw this email, I think it was an email, somehow I found out. And I remember trying to call JT and to just confirm. I was in disbelief. I was trying to call back here and so somebody could tell me it wasn't him.
Torres specialized in Chicano studies. Another love was basketball. He played with friends at the Johnson Center every Tuesday and Thursday for 20 years. He's seen wearing red shorts in this home video.
This is part 3 for Stu.
Well, I think that the two people that no, I just saw Hector and Daniel's name out there. I always, when I first started playing with Hector, there were certain things that he did that I always knew that he was going to do all the time. So I picked on him. So if, one time he got mad at me for that. He said, "Why are you always picking on me?" I said, "Hector, you're always doing the same thing every time, so you need to change that up."
Hector, he probably never played ball until he got here. He was an individual who I can remember when he was first out there and telling him, "Hey, you got to do this, you got to do that." When Coach Bullis all get out, Hector, it's exactly what you told him, he would do it. And he also had his famous hook shot. And so every now and then when somebody does a hook shot, they'll yell Hector.
How does it sound when we yell it?
Hector!
And one of my favorite times of that, or that I would appreciate the most, is when he'd actually hit the hook shot. He'd get so happy, and I felt like I hit it, because I was telling him where to go and didn't pass it, and I really root for him.
And I just remember Hector just had the weirdest shot, because he used to shoot really low to his chest, and he would run around all the time, but he could make that shot low to his chest, and I just always really remembered him for that.
He was a player I really knew by defending him and covering him, and I knew what he was going to do. And also Hector had a great heart. He wasn't going to argue and stuff like that. He was out there to have a good time.
I am often the first person in the gym, but Hector would often beat me. He would get there early because he was one of the few guys who actually did a pre-game stretching regimen religiously. And he would be down on the ground stretching his legs up, and sometimes I'd walk past him and I'd either pat the top of his feet as they were stretched up to the ceiling and say, "Oh, hey, Hector." Maybe I'd ruffle his hair a little bit. And we'd have a short conversation, but it was enough to make a real bond with him that was so pleasant and so easy, and he was just a lovable character. And it was hard to proceed without him.
But I was talking to Hector a lot during that time. And I was aware of his strife that was going on. And so, I was shocked by it, but it didn't come out of the total blue, because I knew that there was stuff happening in his personal life that was really tough. But of course, who would ever thought of that?
The way I remember Hector Torres was as one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet on a basketball court or anywhere else. Fun, kind of a quiet sense of humor, joking. And Hector was a guy of peace. The stories are of him trying to talk the guy out of doing what he was about to do. And Hector failed to succeed, failed to do that. But he died doing what he really believed in, which was being a guy of peace. That's the way I remember him on the basketball court. He was one of those, when things blew up on a basketball court, he was also always trying to talk people down. So he leaves a memory and a legacy of that.
Rich, just hold a second for this silence. I ran out and got black wristbands, I think that same day, for us to wear for a few weeks. I still have mine, and put it on once in a while and think of Hector and Daniel.
A year ago, Jacob Williams was drunk behind the wheel south of Belen. He crossed the center line and plowed into a motorcycle carrying Daniel Sanchez and his daughter Megan. She was badly hurt. He was killed.
My 2-year-old and 3-year-old will have very, very few memories of their father, and that's sad.
I remember Daniel Sanchez as one of the really fine shooters on a basketball court, but also the guy always easy with a joke, easy with a smile at somebody else's joke. I can picture Daniel with just that grin on his face, whether it was after an incredible long basketball shot or after somebody giving him a hard time joking with him.
Either the best or second best shooter of all time that ever played in the Legends. He never played defense. We used to yell at him, "Play defense," but he didn't have to, because he could outshoot whoever he was guarding. And so And, you had to respect the guy, and he was a nice guy, really nice guy.
Daniel was one of the best three-point shooters that I've known over the years. When I was fresh, I would be able to hang with him, play defense on him. I knew what his movements are, force him to pass it. I think that's the two things that I miss about these two guys.
It's hard to lose them, though, wasn't it?
It was difficult. It was difficult.
I applaud you, Paul, and the others that after Daniel's accident and his passing, how that you guys have included and invited his wife and his daughter to come down, because she was such a big basketball fan.
They had just lost their husband and father a few weeks before, as I recall. What gets them to show up to a basketball game at a time like that? I can only think that they, in their love for Daniel, knew what this game meant to him, that it was somehow important to who he was, the kind of husband and father he was, the thing that made him a really good husband and father. And so they, in mourning his death, wanted to come and sort of bear witness, watch that basketball game again.
And since losing Daniel and Hector, it's really changed how I feel about this group, because frankly, when I do see them every week, I kind of want to put my arms around them and give them the biggest hug possible. And I do that some, and I think it makes some of the folks a little uncomfortable. But that's how much this group means to me, these individual guys. And if, or maybe I should say when, we lose another one, it's just going to cut to the heart and make me appreciate everybody else, and any time we get to spend with each other, all the more.
What you could see in the faces of the players who spoke about that loss was that realization of the fragility of the moment, the understanding of how important the community was and is, and that idea of, if I can stay here and now, and when I get onto that court and I'm within 4 feet of the people who I know, there are health benefits to the psychology and the brain to be emotionally close to other people.
To some degree, yeah. To some degree, it is like church. It revives you. It motivates you. It also hopefully teaches all of us to be a better person at different times, or to understand one another. So yeah, I would say yeah, it is like church in many ways.
I do think that basketball is one of those kind of workshops for life, because it's complex, because it involves other people, because you have to make choices in the moment, not just about basketball, but how are you going to relate to this guy who just fouled you, or the guy who's in your face because of something you did.
You have to deal with people, and everyone's different. And so when you're on the court, you have all these different personalities. You're all there to exercise, but you're also there to achieve a goal.
I tell my kids that, when I was growing up, we had neighborhood games all the time, and they were never refereed or an adult was involved. It was amongst us kids. And there were times during those games that we got into disagreements, and we had to come to a compromise, or the game would end. And we don't have that anymore in our society. And I think it really shows in how there's a lack of compromise in our society. Games teach you that, how to get along and how to compromise.
Conflict isn't a negative thing. Conflict dealt with constructively and consciously, mindfully, is part of what makes us more creative as human beings. And conflicts that are allowed either to flare up and blow up, or to just pass because people retreat from them, are actually missed opportunities for creativity. If we can deal with it constructively, if we can enter into the conversation, it's a way to not just suppress the conflict, but use it for something more creative.